Have you ever wondered why the moments you felt most free were often the ones when your life was most structured? Maybe it was during a time when you were training hard, waking early, keeping promises, or staying consistent with a craft. On paper, it looked like sacrifice, restriction even. But in your body, there was something else. Lightness, clarity, pride without arrogance. The quiet sense that you were living on purpose. That's not a coincidence. It's a psychological law, one Carl Jung understood deeply. Chaos always disguises itself as freedom, but ends in enslavement. Order feels restrictive at first, but leads to liberation. Discipline, then, is not the opposite of freedom. It's the foundation of it. Today, we'll walk through this paradox, how the masculine psyche, when untrained, mistakes indulgence for autonomy and rebellion for authenticity. We'll explore why discipline is not about punishment or control, but about integration, the alignment of the conscious will with the deeper self. Because once your will and your soul start moving in the same direction, everything changes. 1. What discipline actually is and what it isn't. Let's begin with a hard truth. Most men don't fail because they lack motivation. They fail because they've built a fragile relationship with discipline. Discipline isn't about harshness or denial. It isn't about beating yourself into shape. It's not a performance of masculinity. It's an act of devotion. Discipline means deciding which parts of you lead and which follow. In Jungian terms, discipline is the ego's collaboration with the self. It's how the conscious mind learns to serve something greater than impulse. When discipline is misunderstood, it becomes tyranny, rigid, lifeless, obsessed with control. But when discipline matures, it becomes rhythm, the consistent heartbeat of purpose. Without it, life becomes noise, scattered desires, half-built ideas, broken promises, and the constant hum of guilt that says, "I could be more." The undisciplined man lives in reaction, always chasing moods, avoiding tension, seeking comfort. He calls this freedom, but it's dependency on pleasure, on praise, on avoidance. True freedom, paradoxically, is choosing your constraints. It's saying, I serve something larger than comfort. Discipline is not the cage. It's the structure that holds the cathedral of your potential. 2. How discipline, or lack of it, appears in ordinary life. You can tell a man's relationship with discipline not by his words, but by his patterns. He wakes late, feels restless, and tells himself he's just tired. He skips one responsibility and justifies it as self-care. He calls his inconsistency being spontaneous. At work, he starts projects with fire, but rarely finishes. In relationships, he promises presence, but is always half elsewhere, scrolling, distracted, ungrounded. He wants to be proud of himself, but most nights he's just negotiating with guilt. Every man knows this cycle. I'll start tomorrow, and tomorrow keeps moving. The absence of discipline doesn't just waste time, it corrodes identity. Each broken promise to yourself becomes a quiet betrayal. Each avoidance chips away at the integrity you need to trust your own word. But when a man builds discipline, everything shifts. His emotions stop ruling him. His energy stops leaking into 1,000 trivial pursuits. He begins to sense the weight of his word and the power in keeping it. That's the freedom discipline gives. The ability to look yourself in the eye and say, I did what I said I would. That's a kind of peace no indulgence can buy. 3. Origins and the boy who stayed. To understand why discipline feels so difficult, you have to meet the boy who first learned what rules meant. For many men, discipline was introduced as domination. the father's voice that punished mistakes, the teacher who demanded perfection, the coach who valued performance over personhood. Discipline became associated with humiliation, fear, and never being enough. So the boy learned rebellion as survival. He found freedom in defiance. "No one tells me what to do" became his battle cry, but also his prison. When that boy grows into a man, he still flinches at structure. He tells himself he's creative, free-spirited, nonconformist, but often he's just terrified of being ruled again. The irony is painful. In running from outer control, he becomes enslaved by inner chaos. The mature man reclaims discipline not as punishment, but as partnership. He becomes the father to himself that he never had, firm but fair. He doesn't chase perfection. He builds reliability. He learns that real authority isn't about dominance. It's about direction. The boy obeys out of fear. The man commits out of love. 4. Contact without collapse. To live a disciplined life, you must first face what resists it. The parts of you that crave instant relief, the child that still believes effort equals pain, the inner saboteur that whispers, "You deserve a break." Those parts are not your enemies. They are ancient adaptations, fragments of the psyche that once protected you from pressure that felt unbearable. When you meet them with compassion rather than condemnation, you begin to integrate them. Contacting those exiled parts doesn't mean indulging them. It means listening long enough to understand what they truly want. Beneath every impulse for distraction lies a hunger for rest. Beneath every craving for comfort lies a need for safety. The difference between collapse and contact is consciousness. A man who collapses gives those parts the steering wheel. A man who contacts them listens, thanks them, and keeps his hand on the wheel. This is where discipline becomes sacred. It's not the suppression of the child. It's the father's hand on his shoulder saying, "I see you, but we have work to do." 5. Containment before expression. Discipline is a form of containment, the vessel through which power becomes usable. Without containment, energy leaks. Emotion becomes chaos. Drive becomes destruction. A man who cannot contain himself cannot be trusted, not by others and not by life. He may be gifted, charismatic, full of fire, but his flame burns indiscriminately. Containment doesn't mean repression. It means you decide when and how your energy moves. The undisciplined man confuses impulse with authenticity. The disciplined man knows that timing is everything. Think of a sword. Its sharpness means nothing without a sheath. A warrior draws it with purpose, not whim. The same applies to your words, your anger, your sexuality, your ambition. Strength without structure destroys. When you practice discipline, you begin to experience the beauty of containment. Emotion that doesn't overwhelm, energy that doesn't scatter, purpose that doesn't depend on mood. You move with intention, not reaction. That's freedom. 6. Consequences of avoidance versus integration. Every man must choose his pain, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. One is temporary, the other lingers. Avoid discipline long enough and your life fills with ghosts, abandoned ideas, half-built relationships, quiet disappointments that whisper, "You had more in you." The man who avoids structure becomes chaotic, anxious, resentful, blaming others for what he never built. But the man who chooses discipline discovers a strange peace. His days may look repetitive, but his soul expands. He learns to trust time. He no longer needs novelty to feel alive. Integration is what turns repetition into rhythm. Discipline becomes the ritual through which a man's potential takes shape. You don't need to control the world. You just need to show up consistently in it. That's how you build a life that lasts. 7. Archetypal framing: the king, warrior, magician, and lover. Every man holds these 4 archetypes within him, and discipline gives each its rightful place. The warrior provides focus, the ability to endure, to channel aggression toward creation rather than destruction. Discipline refines him into strength without cruelty. The magician offers insight, the awareness to see patterns, anticipate outcomes, and align action with meaning. Discipline keeps him grounded so wisdom doesn't dissolve into fantasy. The lover brings vitality, the connection to beauty, joy, and emotion. Discipline allows him to love deeply without losing himself. And the king governs all. He brings order to chaos, structure to energy, law to instinct. Discipline is his throne, not a punishment, but a promise that life under his rule will have direction, harmony, and purpose. When these archetypes are integrated, discipline becomes natural, not forced, not feared. It is simply how the man expresses his alignment with life. 8. Responsibility and witness. The disciplined man understands that he must walk alone sometimes, not in isolation, but in sovereignty. Responsibility gives him weight, witness gives him warmth. Together they form the spine of masculine freedom. You cannot outsource discipline. You can be inspired, guided, challenged, but no one can make you consistent. It's a private covenant between you and your potential. Yet every man needs a mirror. Brothers who won't let him drift, mentors who remind him that consistency is sacred, not mechanical. Discipline doesn't thrive in loneliness, it thrives in accountability. When a man's word becomes his bond, his very presence becomes trustworthy. He no longer needs to promise. People simply know he will do what must be done. That is the quiet charisma of discipline. It's not showy, it's steady. It's the backbone of every great man you've ever admired. Discipline is not the enemy of your freedom, it is the architect of it. When you choose structure, you are not betraying your spontaneity, you are giving it form. When you commit, you are not losing options, you are gaining direction. When you repeat, you are not wasting time, you are building mastery. Most men spend their lives negotiating with chaos, hoping one day to feel free. The disciplined man stops negotiating. He builds a life so grounded, so deliberate, that freedom becomes his natural state. Remember this, you do not rise to the level of your potential. You fall to the level of your discipline. So choose the kind that liberates you, not the kind that enslaves you. Build a life where your word, your work, and your will are one. Be that man, not perfectly, reliably. Begin.